So I'm almost 27. I live in Novi Sad, Serbia. And when it comes to the civil sector, I'm a youth worker. These days, I've been mentoring some volunteer groups who are doing their activities. And I'm sort of there like to consult with them and sort of help them guide through their first projects. In general, I sometimes develop educational tools on various topics, and that's mostly it. I'm into education and sort of developing the tools needed for education. So far, that would be a board game that I created. With my team, of course, not alone. But I'm proud because it's simple for beginners, but it can get complex while playing. And right now we're trying to sort of create a product out of that because it survived the playtesting phase and it proved to be a good tool. So now we want to create it into some kind of finished product. But yeah, that's the prototype I'm most proud of, and in general, a product I'm proud of. It's not gonna be a nice answer, but I think it's spite and anger, because I do get motivated by nice things, like wanting to, see people learn and grow. But what mostly motivates me to change the world is seeing the world as it is, and that makes me angry, and I say to myself, this cannot pass like this. So this has to be stopped. And I think that those would be, basically I'm doing it out of spite. We have a surrounding here in Serbia, which is just ripe for changing. So you can find something to change at every corner, and there's plenty of opportunity. It's not like you're offered change, but if you see the structural problems and if you're creative enough, you can definitely find something worth changing. But I don't think that's a good thing. We should be living in a place where we can barely see anything worth changing for the better. That would be a much nicer surrounding. Cold, emotionless, and scary. That's what people usually describe me as when they first meet me, when I'm not paying attention. And they later say that they were scared of me at first. Now later they break that first sort of halo effect. But over the years I've become aware that I give this first impression of like a serious robot sort of person. And now when I'm with a group, I try to like break the ice right away so that they find me goofy and maybe socially awkward, but not hateful towards them. But in my private life, I don't put that much effort into first impressions. So I have no idea. I rarely ask for feedback on how people see me. It's mostly that they tell me how they were afraid of me at first, but on the street, I don't know how I look. I suppose I do look kind of intimidating when I'm in a rush. Optimism. I want to develop my optimism. I think right now, with the current situation in the world, I'm too often acutely aware that things are bad, and that sort of makes me stressed throughout the day. Even when I don't have things that I could change right away, I sort of feel that constant looming threat, and that makes resting time more difficult. So that's what I would like to change. I would like to be able to completely detach from the world and just enjoy, so that I can, charge my batteries and continue doing what I want to get done. That and time management, but I think everybody has some time management, improvements to look forward to. At first, I was into directing. I wanted to make movies, and I didn't have a budget, so I just wanted to make amateur movies. Unfortunately, the people I could find as actors didn't have enough motivation to stick through the whole process. And then I went to a camp as a leader, just so I can get those soft skills to become a better director and lead a team. And step by step, from then on, I was trying to figure out how to get motivated people around me to do whatever I want to do. Now, it's no longer just an amateur movie. Now it's other types of, activist activities. But I still have an issue with, either respecting people's choice to not be engaged, or getting them engaged. I have a lot of apathy around me, and I would need people who have enough, drive to change things together with me. Well, my generation, so the mid and early 90s kids, seem to be suffering from what is apparently a problem with a lot of millennials, and that we're just run down from life, and we sort of drift, and that's the community that I don't want to be a part of. And I like the younger generations, because they're not as a simple way to put it would be grown up. They haven't given up hope. They're still exploring, figuring stuff out, but they are the ones whom I find motivated more often than not. So I try to mingle with people younger than me who still have that drive, or I don't know if it's still having it or just developing it in a different kind of community and circumstances, so that maybe they're the generation that's going to make a change. The single most important thing would be passion. So if I see a person that is driven and passionate about something, it can be, cooking, or it can be something closer to what I like movies, if we share the same hobby. That's nice to be around. Because when I find people who are obviously passionate about a certain activity, I can more easily find people that I can match those activities with. So if we're both passionate about the same thing, that's promising. So that's what I look for, that drive. The people that most inspire me are random people that I cannot even verify exist, or I don't verify exist at that moment. I occasionally stumble upon an internet post about a person in their local community who went against the system so hard that they mostly end up disappeared or in jail, or at least prosecuted. But they saw something and they wouldn't give up, in spite of them being just, an individual who had no chance to truly, push their idea through to the end. But through that one sort of act of numerous acts and that persistent attempt, they managed to inspire people around them. So there was this guy I recently read about, I think it was in America. I have no idea where it was, and I have no idea who that person is. He never made it to the mainstream news, because apparently the mainstream news were run by the same people he was going against, so they never gave him the coverage. So I don't know if this person actually existed or if this is some fake news, but Apparently he figured out that the traffic lights were rigged in such a way that the camera would, the automatic camera filming your plates would film you and charge you a fee as if you had broken a law by going through the red light, even when it's not the red light. So they hacked the camera in such a way that the local, well, I don't know, the local municipality, whatever they call it there, would get money from charging people for charges that they didn't commit. And this guy figured it out, and he started cutting the cables on the cameras. No, first he started moving the cameras so that they look away. Then when they would return them, he started cutting the wires. Now this was already an offense. So the police started to, lock him up occasionally, just, threaten him. But I do think that the police were the ones getting that money. However, that person kept on messing with the cameras because he refused that sort of corruption in the system, and he started talking about it. But unfortunately, the local media was run by the same person who had ties with that local municipality. So ultimately, I don't think he managed to change anything. But that's the kind of person that inspires me to, maybe that can get people to start being activists, seeing examples of that. What I most disagree with is when people call volunteering activism. So for me, activism has to be some bottom-up movement against the current systemic way of arranging society. So oftentimes when we're volunteering in the civil sector, it's funded by the government, and they pay us money to organize, a bunch of youth and take some pictures, clean the what do you call it? The shore of a lake or like the street or whatever, a park. And then we say, environment, let's take care of the environment. And then we go home, and that was a nice little volunteering action. But I don't think that that's activism. For me, activism would be detecting a problem that needs to be solved, gathering the required, person power for that, and just going, most of the time, going against the system. Because most of the time the bad things are caused by somebody who has interest in causing those bad things, say pollution. And then activism would not be just cleaning the trash for the sake of environment. Activism would be going against those who most pollute the environment. If you don't make the world better when you can, then you're responsible for the bad thing that happens. If they can understand the core issue, and if they can present that issue in a sort of straightforward and appealing way, if they can make you believe it, then they're influencing you. So they do oftentimes have to be charismatic enough and eloquent enough to create a narrative which you're going to understand and let change you. So I focus more when thinking about people who influence about how it's framed and what story they're telling. Sometimes it's because they're promoting those ideas, but sometimes it's the internet post I mentioned earlier with the guy who never really made a story out of himself, but other people who noticed that did. And they explained it in such a way where it was obvious he was going against something. And then how you lay it out, how you present that story, is either going to inspire and give you new insight into something, or you're just gonna, swipe on. What I imagine the world will look like in, say, 20 years is gonna be a war-ridden, and sometimes civil war ridden, but very difficult and in a constant crisis sort of world. Because right now we're doing things that's making a bunch of people miserable, and those miserable people become desperate, and desperation causes suffering. Well, it was never easier to connect, and connecting is one of the key ingredients to a world peace. So, you know, we now both know what Zoom is, and we can make a casual interview, you know, one country apart, and we can do this half the world apart. And if doing an interview is that easy, I mean, so is a bunch of other interaction. And I think we're now becoming truly a global village where we can meet the whole world. And I think that's something that previous generations never had the chance to experience. And I think that's the biggest opportunity we have. We can now communicate worldwide.